Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to DConf 2014. My name's James, and I'm here from Facebook. I run our open source programs, and Andrei gave me the opportunity, thank you very much, to kind of help MC today and keep things moving along. I get to work with a lot of different developer communities at both internally and externally to Facebook, and communities that work on libraries and frameworks. All of our different open source projects have different types of communities. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the communities that spring up around languages are often the ones that are the most kind of vibrant and the most loyal and enthusiastic. And I think D is absolutely no exception, and it's real thrill for us to see you all here today. I also want to point out that it's not just the guys that are here in the room. We've got 65 people, I think, on the live stream right now as well. So hopefully you can all see us.
100.
Oh, 100. All right, it's gone up already. So we've got people joining us from all over the world, which I think kind of is testament to the broad reach of the community. In fact, they got a small poll going on the live stream chat to see where everyone's come from. We've got folks in India, Seattle, Korea, Jordan, Belarus, Kansas City, Oslo, Philadelphia, London, Argentina, North Carolina, Canada, Dundee, Koh Samui in Thailand, by the way. That sounds like the most interesting place to be dialing in from. And someone claims they're on Klingon. So anyway, just wanted to make the point that there are lots of, I guess, friends from the community who are joining us from all around the world today. And not just those of you in the room. At Facebook, we're really proud to have the opportunity to host you all here today. Hope you have a really good 3 days. Hope you enjoy the setting. We obviously are going to be laying on plenty of nice food and entertainment and so forth. If you have any questions about logistics, whatever, don't hesitate to ask me or Christina, who's at the back there. But hopefully the logistics for the day should be pretty straightforward. And as I always say at these things, my main job is to get off the stage as quickly as possible and hand over to the people that are going to talk about the stuff you've come to hear. So, without further ado, as they say, I would like to introduce, I think, a man who probably needs no introduction, Andrei himself. Take it away, please.
Thanks. Wait, I didn't do anything yet. Okay. Wow. This is fantastic. I apologize for replacing James's rugged good looks and pleasant British accent with this. That's all I got. So, state of the struct address. There's at least 2 puns in the title that I counted. I would like to talk a bit about where we are with D and where we're going. And I will start with a few numbers. I claim to be a scientist, often unsuccessfully, but I like numbers, and I like to look at numbers and see what they tell us. And the obvious question would be, how many users do we have? How many users of the D programming language are out there? And of course, that's a very difficult question to answer. But we can take a shot at it by looking at the monthly downloads of DMD from our S3 server from Amazon. Who knows what this was? No, this was the famed release 2062. And there's a large surge of people downloading it. There's a summer slump in 2013. But after that, and I think this was 2063, after that, we seem to have entered sort of a new league. So, by the way, this is a filter for duplicates and failed downloads and stuff like that. Expended some effort on that. But essentially, there's like month after month, there's like about 10,000 people coming and downloading DMD. And that's only DMD, and it's only out the Amazon S3 website servers. So, what can we infer from that? Not much, because there's going to be a lot of people going to download DMD and kind of use it for a minute and throw it away. But definitely there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to download it once and use it, or get it from FTP, which doesn't count, is not represented here, or maybe they can exchange it on floppy disks. and whatever, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways to share the software. Anyhow, my estimate is that the community is in 5 digits, so we have tens of thousands of users at this point. Tens of thousands. By the way, the fraction of these downloads that counts for D1 is 4.1%. So I could say that at this point, D1 is sort of entering the RIP stage of its lifetime. So if you want to use D at all, I suggest you may want to use the other 95.9% of the votes. How about the website? What's going on there? I have this crappy graph from Webalizer. They couldn't find a nice font. I mean, look at that blocky font there. What's wrong with them? Anyhow, so we have, I think the visits statistics are the most interesting. Note there's a marked decrease of visits, in essentially all metrics starting in January, December and January. And although the number of downloads has been steady, the number of visits has decreased. And that must mean we have perfect documentation, so people don't need to go to the website to consult any documentation at all. The code in D writes itself. You don't need to go anywhere to look, what the hell is this, right? Well, the realistic interpretation of this is we are overdue for redesigning the website. Who thinks so? A forest of hands. Where's the forest? Okay. So I think we're overdue for redesigning the site. We're making some steps. There's a few people here I'm going to talk to about it. But essentially, at this point, it's clear to me that the decrease in traffic it is fixable. We know there are standard ways to increase traffic to a website. So, speaking of which, I'm not a web designer. Walter is not. And we need a czar to take over that task and that ongoing maintenance. So the site is overdue for czardom. I'm going to talk a bit more about taking responsibility within the community to distinct things and tasks. And we really need someone on this. And I noticed that our community has an interesting habit, which is like the best way to stop the fiercest debate on the forum is to say, okay, who wants to take this? Who wants to work on this stuff, right? So we need to take more responsibility within the community. We are not the Communist Party. We can't hand out everything to everybody, right? We just can't. So we got to take initiative here. How about talking on the forums? Question: how many posts do you think there are every day on the D forum, the main forum? Give me a number. 200. Who gives more? Less. 500. Oh my God, that would be two full-time jobs. So here's what I did. I plotted, careful here, the moving average with an aperture of 365 days, right, of the number of daily posts. So I take a moving window, I'm kind of rolling it one day at a time, and I count the posts during that window, and then I divide them by 365, and I get the daily average. This is actually the best measure I could get, because anything else is extremely noisy because of seasonal differences. Like, everybody goes away in August, everybody gets excited in October, everybody gets, the heat in March or something. Stuff is happening all the time. If you average, you're gonna notice some interesting trends. First of all, I have bad news for you. The job of keeping up with the forum is getting increasingly difficult. So we're looking at 90 posts a day right now, and it looks like it's only going to get larger. One trend that I like a lot is the green line, which is number of posts on the noob news group, the Learn forum, which means there's essentially there's more questions about how do I do this, how do I do that, and that's great. A trend that I don't like that much is the blue line, which is announcements. Like, it looks like we're doing a lot more work and people are downloading our software, but we're not kind of announcing it that much. So This is, I don't like the flatness there. And how many posters do you think we got? Like, monthly posters? Or in a year, like 365 days. How many distinct posters are out there? 120. That's made up because it can't end with a 0. Okay, so I thought that would be an interesting question, so I plotted that too. And I can only presume 2008 was the peak of D1. We had like the absolute largest number of distinct posters. It was also a period in this history when there was a lot of sock puppetry. So I'm counting that too in the statistics. But let's say since 2012, there's been like a marked increase on distinct number of posters at all levels, including announce, including learn, and including the main forum too. So this is interesting. But what's even more interesting is that, consider this, in every given year, 365 days window, in every given year, there's like, what, 900 people, right? Of these, on any specific topic, there's going to be a fraction of that. And people who know they're saying, there's going to be a fraction of that, a large fraction nevertheless. But it's kind of a fraction of, this is like the upper bound. So there's going to be a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And then people are like, we got 5 votes on that. Everybody in the community says that. Let's do it, right? So don't get deluded that this number is a good representative of the tens of thousands of users who are actually downloading and using DMD. By the way, just to make this clear, I plotted also the 28 days moving average of distinct posters, which is about a month, right? 4 weeks. And in any 4 weeks, we have like 200 people yapping about. 200 people. Of these, again, there's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, and it's difficult to claim that, the whole community is on the forum, and the whole community has voted on this and that and the other. All right, so we talked, but let's get some work done, right? What we see here is how many commits on GitHub we have. 2008, the red is like the DMD source code, right? So in 2008, DMD wasn't even open source, so there's no red. 2009, 2011, 12, 13, explosive growth. And this is plotted 2014 so far. We're in May, right, as of Sunday. So I plotted like as of Sunday. And then I did sort of the obvious extrapolation trick. I multiplied these numbers with what's left in the year proportionally. So if you keep on working as much as we've worked until now this year, we are about as active as we were last year. And I don't like that. So it means we're kind of leveling off with work. And, I wouldn't be so bothered about this if it weren't for this kind of stuff, which is like, oh, there's more yapping, but less working. More people, more talk, more, more kind of stuff going on, but there's actually less work getting done. So this is a trend I don't like. I want this to go through the roof. However, I'll note a few interesting trends. So red is the compiler. And notice how the relative proportion of the compiler to everything else is decreasing, which means we're adding more to the standard library, green. Blue. We're adding more to the runtime, the core library, which is green. And we're adding to the website and the tools and everything else. And that is a good trend. I think that's we're in good shape with that. Questions? All right, so keep this in mind, okay? Wall of shame. The wall of shame. Pull requests that people are not looking at, not approving, not commenting on, not discussing, and they're just flapping in the wind. They're just rotting in the wind. there, just doing nothing. 188. That's a huge source of frustration for the contributors who are actually spending time on writing these pull requests. And they're kind of, they hope to contribute. They want to contribute. They're actually contributing. They're doing it. Literally, they are contributing to they add value. And we're looking at 188 of these cases, some as old as probably somebody could just look quickly on GitHub, probably more than 1 year. And there's 188 of these just waiting to be looked at and integrated. Most of them are DMD, but Phobos is no slouch either. So essentially, we have sort of a lineup of work to do that we're just not doing. And that's not a good thing. Speaking of work, I'm not sure this is not very visible because this is all this is the font. And it looks just as bad on the laptop. This is the font that the folks at Bugzilla thought this is going to be what ICE are going to love. Right? This is going to be what people like looking at. They're going to love this. And let's make them as small as possible, even in the legend, so nobody can see them. Let them get glasses, right? The red line is DMD plus Phobos closed bugs issues. And I'm plotting a trend since we measured, which is November 2006. So we're looking at a nice superlinear trend in bugs fixed. We're looking at a sort of a linear trend in bugs that are still open. And that's kind of a pleasing image if it weren't for the crappy font that Bugzilla has, which I hate that. All right. To kind of zoom in a bit, I zoomed to 4 years ago, exactly to this day, to actually Sunday. So zooming in, we're looking at a fairly flat bugs added kind of thing, and a fairly superlinear bugs fixed thing, which is great. And zooming in even further, up to exactly 2 years ago, that's 365 times 2, starting on that's May 10 of 2012 up until Sunday. And looking at this, it's still superlinear. The red line is still superlinear. I actually measured, and we're looking at 90% increase in bugs fixed year over year over 2012, which is a very nice trend. And I'm also looking at the green line, the bugs still open, which is fairly flat at 2,000. So we have 2,000 open bugs. And it is my opinion that if we break that trend to under 2,000 open bugs, we are going to have not made only a good jump in quality, but also it would be a very good psychological barrier, because anything under 1,000 is going to be like they have 800 bugs open, and that's good, as opposed to they have over 2,000 bugs open right now. What the hell is wrong with them? Right. Speaking of which, I thought the numbers can be misleading. So actually, let me look at when people talk on the forums. How often do they say, "Oh, the compiler is full of bugs, like wild cat of lice, and it's crappy compiler and crappy library, and it's." So actually, 2007 we were doing pretty good. People are like, oh yeah, there's not a lot of those things. And there's been a ramping up until 2010. And early 2011, guess what happened? Walter and I sat down and we said, make quality a priority. And I'm very happy to see that the numbers seem to confirm that, because there's been a decreasing trend. The use of the word bugs peaked in 2010, and then it's just been decreasing ever since. And it should keep on decreasing. By the way, this is relative use, so it doesn't matter. The actual traffic on the forum is not absolute. It's just frequency of the word per 10,000 words in the forum. And now that, so I got the script going, and I thought, what would be another word I would like to see plotted there for frequency? ICE. I'm thinking of an even tougher word. Garbage collection. That's a phrase, so that's not a word. Garbage. Well, I thought of a different word, which is a common curse word that shall not be mentioned in clear, the word that can't be named, the Voldemort word. And look at this, like, it's the four-letter word. So look at this, the age of innocence. 2007, things were so nice back then. I was a graduate student, everything was going well, and oh my God, this was so awesome. And then, there's been like the flame wars of 2008, which are going to go down in history as the flame wars of whatever. And then there's been a decrease, and actually things have been decreasing pretty nice, except for 2012, which was the crazy or something. Something happened in 2012. I didn't look exactly into what happened, but it's kind of interesting. It's a singularity right here, because if you look at the trend, it's kind of linearly decreasing, except for this 1 year. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. Must be when Mono joined or something. Mono is Mono online. All right. Anyhow, I like this. And I would hope that it's going to continue to go down. I think we have a very civil and very nice forum. By the way, these frequencies are, like, look at this. It's a different scale than this, right? So it's fairly low. All right. So enough with the numbers. Let's see where we are today and what's going on. What's happening right now and up until now. And of course, the common question that people ask is, what's going on with D at Facebook? I'm not at liberty to talk that much, unfortunately. However, I can say the following things. We have Flint and Warp in daily use. Both have been turned out to be faster than their C++ counterparts. And they're open sourced, and there's participation to them, both internally and externally. And essentially, it's a living proof that software in D can be really competitive and really, really good. On May 15, that's very recently, we announced the Presto DBC driver kickoff, which is going to be written in D. Presto is a database, a lightweight database on top of the Hive store. Hive, in turn, is a very large database that we use here at Facebook, and it's open source. It's used in many places, scaling up to like petabytes. It's distributed. It's a very large database. And Presto is a lightweight engine for the database. And the next thing people ask about Presto is like, how do I connect to this particular database from within Excel, Word, and whatever financial tools I have for analysis? And essentially, like, every talk on Presto ends up like, what's the deal with ODBC? And they either say, we're going to work on it, or here's how you can avoid it, and here's how you can work around it, etc. Until essentially, we got a very talented intern, raise your hand, Mark, who said, you know what, I'm going to just do it. And they chose to use D for a very interesting reason. ODBC is the technology started when? 94, right? Like before our intern was born. No, literally, you know. Huh? Not so. He was in the project. You know, the project was already started. So anyhow, it's a very old technology, and it's kind of this is a CDLL, you know, dynamic library, and you kind of the driver loads it and all that stuff, and it's really, really, really old and it's kind of crotchety. So, you know, the Presto folks said, you know what, we got to make this sexy somehow. We got to make this interesting. We got to make this attractive. So they said, oh, let's make it an interesting language. And what language would be good for it? Let's settle on D, because D is nice, is sexy, and you know, has things going about it, etc. So that said, there are a couple more projects in the oven that I can't talk about, but things are happening. There's internal work on the support library. Adam Simpkins here. Adam, raise your hand. Adam from Facebook, he's a senior engineer here. He's going to give a talk later about today, right? Today at 2:30 about it. There's using casual scripts, and that's going to only ramp up because we just recently introduced our DMD internally. And the general attitude is cautious optimism. about the use of D at Facebook. It's been successful. People love it, but obviously not everybody. However, please note, Facebook is historically, it's been always a sponsor of cool technologies. It's it's people who work here who bring whatever they want to work on, whatever they enjoy, and we make it possible at Facebook, right? So there's use of OCaml. Actually, the hack parser is written OCaml, which is kind of nice. We use Haskell. We have a whole team in London that uses Haskell right now. Well, I think there's a project in Go. There's a project in Erlang. I'm not sure if it's still active or not. But essentially, like, whatever tool was good for a job and people liked it, they were able to use it at Facebook. So we're not that special. D is not that special. So current use of D I would qualify as just exploratory. And there are many technical and non-technical, things about the situation, right? I would like to say a few words on competing with other languages. So there are many other languages coming. Essentially, there's increasing competition in the programming language space, and some of which, directly competes with D, such as Rust. Some of which competes for mindshare. Essentially, all other language compete with D for mindshare, because if any new user of D is going to start looking at any new language, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to look at 3 languages now, and I'm going to use 3 languages starting tomorrow. It's not going to happen like that. They're going to decide on one language, and that's going to be the choice they're going to make. And whatever choice they're going to make against D is going to be for a different language. So mindshare is important. What I do like about that is there's pressure for better quality. I love that. It means D is getting better. It means everybody else is getting better. It means sort of the world, the greater good, is happening. It's a good thing, sort of philosophically. Of course, I'm pissed if people don't choose D, right? I hate it. So my vision is we should take inspiration from other languages. Everybody takes inspiration from everybody else. In fact, only today I kind of got an email in my inbox, which was, well, we got to add universal function called syntax to C++, and there's a proposal to that. Of course, probably the proposers would never admit D was one of the sources of inspiration for it, as they haven't in the past. But it is a fact that all languages are going to take inspiration from one another, and I think that's a good thing too, again, at large. And my vision, however, is we ought not to compete with other languages. Who should we compete with? The Olympics? What? Who? Chuck got it right, ourselves. So a pattern that has worked for me personally, I think has worked in a lot of people I admire, and that I believe is the true one way to compete, is to compete against yourself. You are your own major enemy. I think the worst competitor of 2066, one that should make us feel ashamed that we ever release that crappy piece of software, should be the next release. I really deeply believe that. This should make us feel ashamed about this, right? And then on and on and on. This is the way I think competition should happen. You do your absolute very best, and you're going to end up being better than others if you're really good. Going forward, all right. Okay, I presume this is going to be really controversial here, but well, here's some things I believe personally that would be good to do for D. I'm going to kind of qualify that later. Complete the language. There's a few shady aspects of the language that are not well defined, or they're insufficiently defined, or they interact poorly with each other, etc. Cross all T's, dot all I's. Features should interact unsurprisingly and harmoniously with one another. I think we still have work to do on that. We need to improve the safety. I think this is big. Work on qualifiers. inference, deduction, things like the whole uniqueness story. And we should make user-defined types every bit as good as built-ins, maybe even with literals. So we didn't think about user-defined literals yet, but they may be important. But at this point, we're like 99% of the way to making user-defined types as good as built-in types. But we need to spend at 1 extra percent because it's a sheer annoyance. Expanding the language. Go to new operating systems. Go to new devices. Improve and add more libraries. Improve and add more frameworks. Vibe.d would be a premier example here to give for the future, but there's so much more to do. And better interoperation with other languages. Adam is going to speak more about that. So I talked about competing and expanding a language, completing a language, and a means that I believe would be feasible for us would be to use leverage. Competition is asymmetric. So many other languages have large corporations backing them up, or they have large teams working on it and being paid to work on it. And that's all good. We're in an asymmetric position right now because we don't have that many resources. So I think we have used in the past successfully, and we should continue and expand our use of leverage by leveraging things like ideas. We have historically had probably a handful of very good ideas to very hard problems that have worked for us. And it was like, oh yeah, these guys did it that way. That's interesting. Things like static if really saved our butts here. The Boolean template constraints was a hit. Value range propagation was huge. Scope was great. Compile time function evaluation was great. Pretty was good. So these kind of things are things that, essentially before the idea, it was like, it can't be done, right? Like speaking of only of things like value range propagation. So it was like, how the hell do you go about different integer types and if different widths and not losing information and doing it the right way without casts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was like, for a while, Walter and I were kind of meeting and drinking enough coffee to drown a suburb there. And we're like, it can't be done. Nobody did it, so it can't be done. And one day, this VRP thing came out of the blue. I think Brad mentioned it. Oh, there's this compiler optimization that's value range propagation, so what the hell? Maybe we could do something about it. And it came out of nowhere, and it was a good idea. And it was a leveraged idea, right? Because then it provided an innovative solution to something that many people deemed impossible. I think generic and generative approaches are going to be essential for D. D is very strong at both. And I believe that we maybe can't find a guy who's going to sit down and write 6,000 lines of a parser, but we may be able to find a guy who's writing the 1,000 lines of code that's going to generate the 6,000 lines of code that's going to be a parser, right? We can't afford boilerplate, right? We don't have Java's muscle, right? No, I'm not kidding. So we can't afford to develop boilerplate-rich technology. We can afford to develop highly leveraged technology, which is going to be you write a little code and it's going to just. I'm just thinking things like std algorithm. It has a few thousand lines, but how many users does it have? It can be used for everything, for a lot of stuff, and it's just all leveraged, extremely leveraged. Technical key directions that I believe are good for us are, as I mentioned, bring issues in the 3 digits, open bugs. Work on safety and formalism, both of the language and the standard library. There's been this discussion about formalizing ranges properly, right? And I think it's very important because some formalisms are going to be less efficient, some are going to be more efficient, some are going to be just crappy, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to work on that kind of stuff. Resource management is, of course, a topic that comes very often on people's minds, including things like garbage collection versus alternatives, reference counting, what have you. And I should add that only today I learned that Herb Sutter is going to have a talk at CPBCon in Bellevue in the fall about adding garbage collection to C++. As it's just key to all of them lock-free data structures and a bunch of other good things, and the alternative approaches just don't cut it. I hope Manu is online. I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to ruin his life. Okay. But that said, we do want parity with the likes of C++. We want parity with the likes of Rust. And of course, we want to be better than all of the above. So we should have alternatives to traditional automatic memory management. We should have reference counting at its very best. We should have deterministic destruction at its best. We should have everything at its best. And I believe we can do it. A key point here, I'm going to go back a bit. A key point here is this. So the moment we have that, we're going to be able to usher into other things. We're going to be able to usher into like types that are transparently using one or the other scheme for managing resources. Dynamic library support is very important obviously for the Presto DBC project. So, I would like to kind of get to the stage where we definitely have the absolute best support for dynamic libraries. Martin is working on that. I'm going to talk to him later. I encourage you to do the same if you're interested in this topic. We're pretty good on Linux right now. We should be a lot better on Windows and Mac OS X. I think we kind of get there, but it's not perfect, right? Build speed and quality. So this is worth spending a minute on. This is the absolutely most powerful gateway drug that I noticed people kind of experience with D. This is like the crack cocaine of D is build speed. Because everybody loves it, from all communities. There's not one person in the world who's going to be like, actually, I like slower builds. It's a good thing for me. For my life, it's kind of a good coffee, right? This is awesome because everybody, like essentially like at Facebook, people come to you, they're like, we've done everything we know about building C++. We are out of ideas. We kind of throw in the towel and Andrei, help me, right? So this is the absolute thing. People come and essentially they say there's only this many ways you can accelerate C++ builds because the meaning of every token depends on all tokens before it. It's completely serial and completely messed up in very many ways. I'm not going to debate that, right? It's just, I'm going to say it. It's completely messed up in any number of ways, right? So then people from other languages come to me and say, oh, actually, I enjoy the fact that in Python, I just change the program, run the program, and it's good. Well, it's going to run 100 times slower than it should, but it just starts fast, I guess. You don't need to link it. So those guys are going to appreciate D because they're going to, oh, actually, I can write the same program. It's going to be just as big. It's going to run 10 times faster. And it's going to be like almost as fast to compile, so within the same order of magnitude, right? I'm not going to have to go for coffee there, right? So this is huge for everybody. So I think this is big. This is big. And right now, we have good build speed, but we kind of do a lot of work that we shouldn't. Like we instantiate templates too many times, and we import modules too eagerly, and we do a lot of work that we shouldn't be doing. So, speaking of which, this is the sore thumb poked into our compilation speed's eye, right? I think I used like two metaphors wrongly there, but I think you get the gist of it, right? So code with mixin is gonna, use the mixin, generate some code that if you look at it, you're gonna die, right? And then it's like, all right, so it kind of built, and every time you build it, even though the source code didn't change, the whole process of converting to a string and the whole process of compiling that string from the mixin into the actual decode is going to be done over and over again. worse off. Adam mentioned, Adam's opinion on the matter could be summarized as, I hate mixin. Because we had this, we had this thrift layer written in D that used like, it was like this big, but it used like 1 million mixins. But it's small, right? Leverage, right? What you gonna say? So it's small, but it uses a lot of mixins. Whenever you have an error, you're like, what the hell, call Andrei, right? Because there's no other way. I'm not like, oh, call Walter. And Walter's like, call God. I don't know, you know. So, so we have issues with mixin, and it's compile time speed. It's also error handling, debugging and things like that. And the stupid decompiler, which is actually not, I'm not kidding here, it's the name of SDC, actually does here. Amore showed me that you can actually build things, and it shows you the mixin. Expanded, it shows you where the problem is within the mixin. That's wonderful. It's a very good proof of concept that better things can be done. And with regard to compilation speed in particular, it is my belief that if we get to the point where we can cache the result of the mixin and be smart about it the way people do with dependencies from decades before, I think we can mark a very good improvement of overall build speed quality. Last but not least, more libraries. I mentioned this already. They're great. There are a few non-technical and more social issues too that I believe are important. I've noticed a trend of learned helplessness. Actually, you can Google for it. It's a thing. Learned helplessness. They did some experiments with, like, I don't know, they took some dogs and they kind of electrocuted them and they kind of beat them to death, and I don't know what they did. But essentially, like, after a while, the dogs were like, oh, okay, so this is going to go to hell anyway, so I'm not going to do anything. They didn't leave their cage or whatever they did. Again, you can Google for it. I think it's I was like reading that experiment. Oh my God, do people do that? Jesus. All right. So from learned helplessness, which is like people on the forum come and find me work to do. It would be great if you could work on that. It's very important, but I don't have time for it. But it's important to me. It's essential for my life, but I'm not going to work on it. You work on it. I know what's best for you to work on your kind of, So this is odd. I think we should switch from that to learn industriousness, which is also a thing. You can Google that. You're not going to see like really bad experiments there because it's mostly with humans. But essentially, we should get to the point where people want something and they do it, as opposed to people want something and they're like, oh, you should be working on that. I have a great idea that you could work on starting right now, if possible, right? And there's a lot of that going on right now, and I hope to break this trend. And I think I know how we can break this trend if we give people more responsibility, if we give people more opportunity to contribute. If we pull those goddamn 188 pull requests, that would be good, by the way, my friends. I'm looking at you, right? And among other things, by this, I enact the law of STD experimental. Somebody create it. Let's do it. I'm going to have an experimental package inside STD, which is going to contain everything experimental. And people are going to be encouraged to do that. I don't think it's technically necessary because we have already code at dlang.org, which is our code repository, libraries, and everything. It's not technically necessary, but look at the title of the slide. It's non-technical, right? There are people who don't know about code.dlang.org, which is also not a technical problem. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be, oh, STD experimental. I understand what that does, right? They look at the name. It's its own documentation, right? It's stuff that's not going to be stable. It's not going to stay there forever. It's going to change. It's going to break. And we can use it as a sandbox for testing new library features. I just mentioned this, Rally library support around code.dlang.org. That's the place to go for libraries. So it should be, it should become, what these like pip is for Python, and every language has one. I forgot the names of for languages. But every good language has some place to go to download things for that language. This is a typo. Increase, I was like, oh my God, I'm falling asleep here. It's like 2 a.m. the night before the presentation. So increase, probably it was increase, right? Increat. So maybe I could spin a quick story about like how that's a Latin word, and it's actually can't know about it, but it's very interesting. Increased corporate adoption, I think this is essential for the future of D. More people working on D are going to happen if there's more people working with D. It's a clear equation. There's going to be a causation there happening. And I think we're not too bad here, but we're kind of in linear mode. We're not exponential. There's like, I don't know, 9 corporations officially using D. There's a bunch more, like, again, we have like tens of thousands of users using D. At least that's what the numbers suggest. But I think this is good because a language is as good as good people working on the language, right? And essentially, I'm seeing a lot of underpowered languages that don't have the great ideas, but they do have great people working on them. Like there are people who dedicated their PhD thesis or their life's work or whatever to some specific languages that I'm not gonna name, right? I'm not gonna name languages, but I'm just saying. Essentially, every language is going to be Visual Basic because it's kind of dead, right? So I can't talk about it. About the dead, you speak only nice words. So Visual Basic. What was the greatest thing about Visual Basic? The debugger. What else? The IDE, right? It was the first language with an absolutely fantastic IDE on top of it. Who designed that IDE? The guy with About Face, a professional and very talented designer. About Face, I forgot his name. Could somebody Google for it? About Face. It's a great book, which I've read. And the guy sat down and designed a great idea for Visual Basic, which propelled Visual Basic, which is like a crap language. I mean, how can anybody use, that kind of, it just boggles my mind. Anyhow, so again, About the Dead only speak nicely. But he designed this absolutely fantastic IDE and debugger and form designer and whatnot, and it was like amazing. And then that kind of was a shot in the arm of Visual Basic for 20 years. It made it kind of survive for 20 years, and it was awesome. So a language is as good people doing work on the language, right? So that's what we should do, right? We should do good work and get more people to do good work. Documentation, articles, and books. I've announced this on the internal forum. I'm very happy to announce that the cookbook by Adam D. Rupe is going to be out any minute now. And it's actually a pretty good book. I've read it. I've reviewed it. It's an awesome book. Has a great preface. I wrote it. Forward, sorry. Yeah. It's an awesome book. And Ali's books is in the perpetual state of being like 97% finished. Like it's like, oh, there's this there's this thread on from, and I got like one more decimal to 97.00001 completed, and it's like pi. It goes forever. It's the number of decimals after that is just amazing. So Ali, raise your hand. All right, this is the man who should like kind of punch in the face after this. All right. Documentation, we have the nice experiment with 1 page per library artifact, which is nice. But as you see, the traffic has not increased. Maybe we should make that official and kind of move from there. It is my belief that better documentation is going to be pretty important, if not crucial, to the development of D. And last but not least, I added this on the bus this morning after very much hesitation. Kind of to bring, like, I've been in the military, so I kind of have all these metaphors and stuff. Like there's, general is as good as his lieutenants, right? And we have the general, and we have, like, I don't know, a major. And we should have more lieutenants, and they should take initiative. Just, the kind of the Western style of military doctrine. A good lieutenant takes initiative, takes very high-level tasks and does whatever the hell it takes to implement them, right? So this is what should be going on. We should have more lieutenants. We should have people who are like, oh, website, we have that guy on it. Oh, that's documentation, we have that guy on it. Oh, that's dynamic libraries, we have that guy on it, etc., etc., etc. So we should have more lieutenants. I talked to people who developed successful languages. Guido van Rossum, Bjarne Strustrup, and a number of others. And there's been a lot of stuff. I was surprised because many people told me, oh, so I would ask them like a very specific question, right? Like ask, what's the deal with that thing in your language with, that? And they'd be like, oh, that did not reach my level of conscience. Somebody took care of it. Somebody's on it. They're not like, I would be thinking, oh my, Guido, you must be like crazy with all these pips and improvement proposals for Python, all that stuff going on in Python and all that. It's like, oh, most of the stuff is taken care of before me. What reaches me is like the essential decisions. Whereas in contrast, like, Walter, you should update the goddamn website. What's wrong with you? That can't go well, okay? It doesn't scale. So since 2013, when my keynote was, we should get more professional, get into it, become more strict, become more like really professionals instead of like a seat of the pants operation. It's like, oh, did you update the website because 30,000 people come from Reddit because we just released and it's dying right now. This has happened. This did happen. Like, oh, what's wrong with the site? Because it's frying right now. And on Reddit is like, what the hell is going on with this site? I can't. So that kind of stuff, we should I believe have effectively started migrating away from it. And that's a good thing. But now we have to enter the new stage in which a lot of stuff I don't know about. I would love to not know about a lot of stuff. I would love to like, oh yeah, the website, I don't know, there's that guy on it. He's doing a good job. The release process, we've had a release process. It was good. Andrew led it. But it was very long. We should make it like 10 times shorter, right? All that kind of stuff. And most importantly, the whole lieutenant thing segues into is, the key direction is whatever the hell you choose. Key direction is whatever you choose, is whatever you believe is best. That's the key direction. For example, there's stuff that I don't know about and I don't care about. GUI, REPL. Like, I never identify REPL as a key direction for D. I never said it would be good strategically for D to have a REPL. And there's Martin, where are you? There's Martin who like developed this awesome REPL online. This is fantastic. It's like, oh my God, I spent like hours on it. Like, oh, let's try this to see what happens here. Let's look at that. And amazing. But it was nowhere ever identified as an important thing to work on. But he had an itch and he scratched it. We need more itches with more scratching. Or some, We need more of that stuff because, key direction is whatever you want to do and whatever you take upon and whatever your initiative is, whatever your dream is, whatever you enjoy, you think, this would be good for me and hopefully it's going to be good for many. And this is the kind of things that makes a language successful. Good people doing good work. So take everything I said until now with a grain of salt because these are things I will be working on and I believe are important. But these may not be necessarily the things you believe are important and you will be working on. Nevertheless, if you believe they're good, it's most likely they're going to be good and people are going to appreciate. So don't forget, it happens if and only if. That's not a typo. I wasn't falling asleep when I wrote that. If and only if we make it happen. No, I think it's math. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. That was a close call. I didn't know. So it happens if and only if we make it happen. And conversely, it's never going to happen if we don't make it happen. If we wait for me to work on Arc, it's not going to happen. Maybe it may happen in 10 years from now because I have like a list that's long, 10 years long, right? If you want something, just work on it. Do it. do it, like that movie, right? Do it. So, I'm done. Let's take questions.
All right, I have the mic, so I'm going to run around here. For the benefit of the live stream, want to make sure that you have the mic when you answer.
You mentioned the build times for D as a gateway drug, but the thing is that D isn't the only language that has fast build. That's also one of the selling points for Go, for instance. I mean, that's one of the things they're trying to sell with the language and attract people to it. So what do we do? What should we do to attract them to D instead of Go? Because, I mean, the example you gave was Python programmers. And a lot of the people who are adapting Go are Python programmers.
Well, one simple thing to mention would be that we build faster than Go, and we build faster code than Go. We build faster than C++, and we build code that's faster than C++. Whereas fast, I'm not going to exaggerate here, but we do build code that's faster than Go, and we do build faster than Go, unless the darn machines are going to, get into the fray there. But we build faster than Haskell, and we build faster code than Haskell. So there's some sort of a very nice kind of virtual cycle there, which is happening. We could make it happen more. I don't believe we have real competition in terms of build speed. Of course, at some point it's going to get like, well, if it's like 100 milliseconds extra, I'm not going to care that much. But I do believe this is differentiating us from Go too, because we're actually producing better code than Go does for language reasons, and we have better leverage. So I think this is important, and I do think this differentiates out even from languages that make the speed of compilation claim like Go is. We have this thing. We're the only language that also at the same time builds fast and produces fast code, and that's interesting.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, this is Vic. This is my first DConf. So I wanted to see would it be interesting to other people in the audience to see a show of hands as to what's the most popular editor that everybody's using, including committers?
All right. VI. Emacs. Visual D. All right. Anything else? Sublime Text. I use Sublime. Okay.
Eclipse.
Eclipse.
MonoDevelop.
All right.
Anything else that was not mentioned?
All right.
What's not mentioned? Okay.
Walter's famed editor, Micro Emacs, which is of which he's the only user in the world. All right. Questions? Are there online questions?
Oh, not for this session, there weren't.
Okay.
But actually, just to stress, if anyone's watching on the live stream, hello. We are more than happy to take questions there and on Twitter as well. So the world is our forum, so to speak.
Right. Last question. Yes. Yes.
So you mentioned something about like community self-organization or listener topics, but like, do you have any sort of like dream, ideal vision of how it may actually work? Like a more industrial grade, self-organized community listener and all that stuff.
Can
you just repeat the question?
Yeah, let me repeat the question first off to make sure I understood it. So we're talking about organizational stuff, getting better organized, and how do you see us transitioning to a regime in which we're more like professional grade, industry strength kind of organization? Is that correct? Okay. It is my belief that that's the next stage. It's not what we need to fix right now, because management is about organizing limited resources to do good work. And right now we have the problem that, for example, we have more resources that we can absorb. We have more contributions that we can accept. So there's all the management threads on the forum, I think they're not kind of getting it. Because management is like, oh, we have all these people doing nothing, and we need to make them do something. No, we have few people doing a lot of work, and everybody else is like, oh, you should be working on that, you should be doing that, you should go there, right? So I do think that this kind of organizational stuff is going to be the next big step. Once we amass more itches with more scratching, I think that's going to be very important to organize ourselves a lot better than right now. All right, we have 3 minutes to go.
I think we have time for a short break before the next session, but of course we do need to give Andrei a big round
Great.
of applause.
Thanks much. Thank you.
See you back here in, let's say, 3 minutes promptly. All right.